What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Couple Things
with Shawn and Andrew,
a podcast all about couples
and the things they go through.
These next guests of ours are good friends, Shannon and Chase Willardson, who just became part of the Family Made Network.
That's right. Can you believe we've only met them once in person? I feel like we know them.
Yeah.
They are our friends.
Yes. I feel like I know everything about them.
We vibe.
We do.
And we hope you listening will like them as well. This conversation was really fun. Exciting times for the willardsons family. Mm-hmm. They have 3 kids.
Yes.
Working on a 4th.
Yes.
But their story is nothing short of incredible. Their perspective is absolutely inspirational, I think. And we're just glad to know them. We're glad that they have started their own show called Don't Judge, Just Love.
Yep.
You can find information on that down below, but they're going to unpack what their story is and how they've navigated through it in so many different ways. But these two are really, really special. Chase and I don't know if you know this, we'll send like motivational quotes back and forth to each other, videos or like books.
That doesn't surprise me. You guys are bros. Yeah.
Bros.
When they actually came out here and visited us. And as soon as I saw you and Chase together, I was like, you guys are almost the same human.
Also, his laugh.
Yeah.
I mean,
phenomenal.
How can you not feel joy when you hear his laugh?
You got a little man crush?
I guess I do. Can we just play their trailer though for
Please.
their show right here?
Hi, I'm Shannon.
And I'm Chase.
And this is Don't Judge, Just Love, the podcast, where we talk about all the things with no judgment.
Only love.
That's right. We have a podcast now, dudes, and we are so pumped about it. We cannot wait to connect with y'all in this way and dive deep into topics that we care about and that you care about. But before we jump in, we thought we'd do a little intro. Take it away, Chase.
So Shannon and I have been married for 12 years.
Best 12 years of Chase's life.
Which is very true.
Don't get it wrong.
We have 3 kids. So we have Jack, who's 8, Charlotte, who we call Charlie, who's 6, and Ava, who is 4.
Good job remembering the kids' ages.
Huge achievement. No, it's not. We know our kids' ages and names.
Big things happening already. I think we all know what it feels like to be judged, right? To be misjudged, to be misunderstood, to feel criticized. And it sucks. Like nobody likes to feel that. And I think the reality is that life is hard. You know, we're all going through our own version of hard things. And the last thing any of us need is to have other people's judgment heaped on top of that.
I agree. But as much as life is hard, it's also beautiful, and beautiful things can come out of the hard.
Absolutely. We've experienced that personally in our lives, and after creating content for what, over 10 years now?
10 plus years.
It's been a hot minute. I think the thing that I have seen the most need for is more grace, more kindness, more unity, more support of each other in the things that make life hard. Ultimately, less judgment, more love. And that's why we wanted to create this podcast, so that we could put that out into the world and discuss all the things, but with no judgment.
So that was the impetus for us creating this podcast. Don't judge, just love. Every week we'll ask you to come as you are. Bring your most authentic self and join us in this judgment-free zone where we'll get vulnerable and we're going to be real, and we're also going to discuss all the things, because the truth is life is hard, but life is also beautiful. So Shannon, where can we find this podcast?
Thanks for asking, Chase. I'd love to tell our listeners that. Y'all, you can tune in by subscribing to the Family Made Network and listen to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you want to watch the podcast, you can do that as well by subscribing to the Family Made YouTube page. And we would also love for you to connect with us directly through our social media channels. We are at Shannon Willardson on Instagram and TikTok, at Shannon Willardson on Instagram and TikTok, and then Willardson Family on YouTube. And we really hope you'll do that. We would love your feedback on the podcast. We'd love your ideas about future episodes. Easiest way to do that is probably through DM on Instagram, so make sure you're following there. But we would love to hear your thoughts and ideas about what we can cover in future episodes, all the things. We're just so pumped you're here, and we're so excited to be doing this.
So we hope that this can be a space where you feel seen and also safe.
For sure. Where you feel like you can come as you are, have fun with us, laugh with us, get real with us, get vulnerable with us, talk through life's hard, through life's beautiful, and everything in between. And most importantly, with no judgment, only love.
That's right. All that here at the Don't Judge, Just Love podcast.
This is Don't Judge, Just Love, y'all. We'll see you soon.
So there you go. And if you like it, you can listen to all of their episodes with the link down below. Anyway, Chase, Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. We are glad to know you, and we hope you enjoy this one. Let's go ahead and roll into it.
Chase, Shannon, good to see you again. Thank you for taking time to redo this interview. It's good to see your faces.
Yeah.
Likewise. We're so happy to be here. Round 2, baby. We're just pumped to be here again.
Yeah. I said, hopefully this one will be easier because like now I feel like I know you.
Exactly.
And when we first start doing interviews with people, it's always like that icebreaker phase. Now I'm like, oh, we're good. We can just jump right into it.
Pretty much besties. So here we go.
Yes. Yes.
So let's start at the beginning. How did you two meet?
You want to take that one,
Love at
Chase?
first sight. Shannon saw me and just wanted to propose right there.
Okay.
No, we had a mutual friend, and he did actually introduce me or introduced her, saying, "This girl is awesome. I think you should marry her." And I was like, "Okay, let's slow down here for a second." I was like, "Why aren't you dating her if she's so amazing?" And at the time, he was dating the person that he married and has 4 kids with. And so I was like, "Okay, so you're dating this other girl that you're going to marry. So fantastic." So we tried to go on a couple different blind dates,
Yeah, we
but
kept,
one
like,
time
missing each other.
Shannon couldn't go. I couldn't go the next time.
Yeah.
And then
Anyway, long story long, we met at college. We kept like missing each other. Finally, the stars aligned. We randomly ran into each other in a computer lab. Chase got the cojones to ask me out, and
No. So you have to rewind there for a second though, because so at the college that we were going to, they have a place that's called the testing center where you take like 90% of your tests. So it's like a super stressful building. It's like one of the worst places on campus. And so I was walking to and I was retaking a class. Did fantastic in the retake, by the way. But I was walking and I saw Shannon and I was like, oh my gosh, I recognize her from somewhere because I'd Facebook stalked her. But I couldn't put the two together for a second. I was like, oh my gosh, we were supposed to go on a blind date together. And then Shannon was like, yeah. And I was so stressed that I was just like, well, see you later. And then I just walked away like an idiot. And then so the next time
all right, if the dude doesn't ask you out in that moment, he's not interested. Perfect setup.
Yeah.
Right? And then it's just like, well, see you later.
So then the computer
we were
lab,
supposed to go on a date, right? Oh, yeah. Never mind.
Yeah,
we're good.
But have a good day.
Yeah, it's almost like you saw her in person. Yeah.
So in the computer lab, I did have a phrase that she thought that it was like a
Total line.
yeah, but no. So we had some small talk because I'd walked out of doing a project with this. It was a group project, and there was this girl that was standing next to me, and I wanted her to leave. So I was kind of like, go away. And she just didn't get the social cues. And so she just stood there, and I was like, I can't ask Shannon out in front of this other girl. Anyway, so I walked away, and then I walked back after we'd had small talk, and I was like, look, I never do this, which I don't. And I said, are you dating anyone? She's like, no. And I was like, would you let me take you out? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay.
Wham, bam.
Wow.
Finally got the
Wham, bam.
courage.
Just like that. Done deal.
And then how long after dating did you propose?
Gosh, a really long time. No, I think it was like a couple months.
It was a month and a
gosh.
half before I proposed. So
Wow.
it was
Stop
a
it.
month and a
For
half
real?
before I proposed, and then we got married.
It was 5 months. So from our first date to our wedding day, 5 months.
Did you feel like that felt natural?
I mean, I hope none of my children try to pull stunt like that.
I stopped.
What was the urgency for you guys?
I think it wasn't so much that it wasn't necessarily an urgency more than I would describe it as we had both dated a lot of people that by that point, and
You dated a lot of people?
just
Wow.
surprise.
All of this is coming out now.
It's gonna get weird. No, and it was totally one of those to be cliche, when you know situations.
Yeah.
Like it just felt so clearly different with Chase very early on. Um, and so things just, progressed really quickly.
How did it feel different with Chase?
Like everything. I mean, for one, he was the type of person that I knew I really wanted to be with. He was kind, his temperament, his values. He kind of checked all these boxes, so to speak, of the type of person that I wanted to marry. Um, but then also, and I don't know, this might be hard for me to describe, but with Chase, I felt like there was this undercurrent of like, the only word that comes to mind is peace. Like there's just this undercurrent of peace as we were
Mm-hmm.
dating. Like it just felt good and it felt different. And even though, the idea of getting married, like that's such a huge decision. So I think it's really normal to feel really nervous about it. But even though in those moments where I was like, oh, like underneath all of that, it was still that peace. It wasn't unsettling, just felt good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well said, Shannon. Thank you.
I was gonna say I had a conversation with someone the other day who described it as a similar situation, like had dated people before and met their husband and said my soul felt safe for the first time. Like there was like, not in a dramatic way, but it was just like you said, at peace.
Yeah, I
there's
like
just
that.
this. Yeah.
Totally.
And Chase, since you had apparently, been dating so many people, what was it like when you met Shannon?
So,
Hey, honey, what was that like?
it was amazing. No, I actually, I think it's important to be able to contrast. So again, we kind of joke about dating a lot of people, but I do think it's important that you date, different types of people. And at the time when we first started dating, we were going out with different people. But then I very quickly realized, after 3 dates, because I'd gone on 3 dates with Shannon and then with this other girl, and she was a very nice girl, the other girl, but I was like, while I was with her, I was thinking about Shannon. And so I was like, okay, so so I don't want to take out anybody else. It's like you can see yourself, marrying a lot of different types of people, but she's the type of person that I didn't want to live life without,
Jeez.
Wisdom.
This
Wow.
is
Okay.
romantic
Good answer.
wisdom right
I actually love that because we always talk about the cliche one, and how we don't necessarily believe in it, because I think with marriage, you can marry a ton of different people and make it work.
Totally.
But I do believe, like you said, that there's going to be one person where you're like, I want to make this work. This is the person I could see myself with. So
100%.
I like that.
That's kind of how
Wow.
we viewed it too. Like my philosophy was always like almost like a good, better, best principle. Like, there's probably, like you said, Shawn, a lot of people you can make it work with, but there's got to be people that it would go better with, and then kind of like people it would be best with. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I used to, when I was in the dating phase of my life, I would pray and tell God, like, please align my path with one of my best matches, like someone who would be in that best category. Because that's what I wanted. That's what I got.
I like the personality.
I love it. Okay, so describe the pre-kids phase of your marriage. What was that like with you guys?
And how long was that?
Yeah, so we waited a little longer to have kids. So once we got married, very quickly we knew, like, all right, let's just enjoy being married now for a while before we have kids. So we waited 3 years before we started trying to get pregnant. And I don't know, the word that comes to mind when I think of how to describe it was just fun. It was a fun time. We were finishing college, we were both working, we were kind of broke, but it didn't really matter, we were just figuring it all out and getting to know each other better and figuring the marriage thing out, and it was just fun. Would you agree, Chase?
Absolutely.
Chase like,
I don't know about that.
No.
Chase might have different
It was a
sentiments,
lot of fun, and because our pre-marriage period of time was so short, I think that we wanted to have that time to really just get to know each other, because once you have kids it's like your focus is taken, to the
Yeah.
kids as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we were, creating a marriage and a relationship that had a great foundation, before having kids. But again, I was like, I think right after we got married, I was like, let's have kids right away. And I think Shannon, we obviously wanted to have kids, but I think we realized, okay, let's get to know each other a
We
little
were
bit.
married like 6 months, and Chase was
Yeah.
like, "So you ready?" And I was like,
Oh my gosh.
"No." Slow down there, Tiger.
Yeah, you said Shannon phrased it that they waited quite a while,
Yeah.
or like quite some time.
Yeah.
3 years, I don't feel like, at least
Yeah.
in like our region, is not. That's
We're around people who wait 10, 15,
to like 35,
20 years. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting
How
how
long
there's
did
like
you guys
stigmas,
wait? I'm curious.
Similar to you. So three years.
which I feel like was quick.
Yeah, I feel like it was quick, but I do think too, like you said, there's something really special too. After you get married, you should have that time for just you two,
For sure.
because kids can like put a wedge in your marriage very easily. Because like you said, you don't get to focus so much on your spouse anymore. So you better build a really strong foundation so that when kids come, that little wedge, yeah, that little person, makes your marriage stronger. So
Exactly.
I think 3
'cause it
years
just
is like
totally-
fast.
Yeah, like minimum 3 years minimum.
Yeah.
No, it's true, because it just totally changes the dynamic, and so to make sure that, to your point about having a strong foundation, we were no regrets about doing that for sure.
Yeah. So you guys have 3 kids now.
So now we have 3 kids. Yeah.
Give us their names and ages.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So Jack is 8, just
Just
turned
turned
8
8,
2
yeah.
weeks ago. Charlotte, we call her Charlie, is 6. She's
Yeah,
6.
she's 6. That's crazy.
That's
And then Ava is 3.
Oh, so 3 years after you get married, you guys decide that like it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And did you get pregnant? This is probably a personal question. Did you get pregnant? Easy, is that the right word?
Yeah.
With Jack?
No, that's a good ask. Yeah. Yes, we did. So it all happened, and honestly, with all 3 pregnancies, it was quick. It was pretty quick. Ava actually was a surprise pregnancy while on contraceptives, if I'm allowed to be that honest. So,
Wow.
Oh no,
so
that's scary.
yeah. But yeah, so all of our pregnancies were, pretty quick and pretty easy, for lack of a better word.
So describe to us the transition of pre-kids marriage to post-Jack marriage. How did baby one go for you guys as far as the dynamic within your relationship and then just being new parents?
I think it was exciting. I mean, I think there's that, like, I can't think of the right word either, but like almost like the honeymoon phase of having a child, like where you're excited to get up and then you're not getting enough sleep, which,
Yeah.
depending on
Like,
how
that
your
goes away
kid
real
sleeps.
quick once the sleep
Yeah.
deprivation sets.
But no, I think we were really excited. And so for my side of the family, it was the first grandkid. So it was really cool, my parents, to see them as grandparents. And and we lived really close to them. And so we did a lot of fun things with them and created some great memories with Jack. And I thought it was fun.
But to keep it real, it was also, I think there's a lot to navigate with just coming together on what your dynamic is going to be as parents, where you're both parenting now this little baby
So
that's
true.
yours. I think we had a lot of growth in like learning to be unselfish and, kind of like we're tag teaming this. We're not taking tabs on who's doing what. Like we're just tackling this together at all times,
So hard.
Yeah, and kids, like, they'll teach you how to do that like nothing else will. Nothing will force you to be unselfish like having kids will.
Yeah.
And so, we had a lot of growth there. And then just candidly, I feel like as a mom going through that whole, like the newborn phase and the postpartum phase, that was a whole thing for me, at least too. Hopefully Chase didn't notice it that much, but I remember feeling like it took a while to feel like I was back to where I was feeling like myself again, and so being able to function in my marriage and also as a mom while dealing with all that hormonal junk that just is like a part of having babies. Like that was a new thing to navigate too. So
I also think just like from a scheduling standpoint, like we go like spontaneity was something that we'd enjoy. We're like, oh, let's go and see a movie, or let's go to this restaurant, let's go and do this or that, and it's just all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, is this going to interrupt this nap or like, yeah. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, like
that's not really
or like, are the grandparents available to watch the baby right now? Or like, so there's just a lot of things that you start to realize, like you start to be even, hopefully you try to be a little bit more selfless, even with your time.
Yeah, exactly.
We did that tour at the end of January, and there was a couple that came up to us, and we did this episode on like our yearly goals and kind of like milestones we're trying to hit and things and events we're trying to do. And it's like pretty structured out. There's a lot on there, and we're pretty like rigid as far as keeping track of it. And they came up to us, they're like, we love that mentality of like really being dialed in and focused, but do you feel like you lose the spontaneity part of life? And I had to take a step back and just almost chuckled to myself, where it's like, with 2 kids,
there's none.
You're on a routine, dude.
There's
you're
none.
Dialed in, literally. Like I could tell you.
We lost that a long time.
Yeah, we just embraced it.
Yeah, but it's fun because I was thinking the other day about how lucky I feel to have been married before having kids, because I feel like there is kind of this preparation that you go through, talking about the selfishness and the perspective that, oh, it's not all about me. Because with marriage, you get a taste of that. And like with the scheduling, it's now not just Andrew, packing a bag and flying across the country whenever he wants to. It's, oh, I got to talk to my wife and figure the logistics out. And then with a kid, it's like, boom, even more so. So I feel like it's like the
you can't just up and leave now. Yeah.
Well,
Make sure you know that.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway,
amen. 100%.
describe each of your kids in one word.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, loaded question. To pick one word for Jack, that is challenging.
I feel like games. Like he loves like sports, and he wants everything to kind of be a game.
Love that.
Yeah.
I don't think you agree with that. That word though. Do you have a better one?
Oh God. Everything. That's what's coming to my mind with Jack. He's just all the things. He's got so much personality, and it just comes out in so many ways.
That's awesome.
Charlie, it's a good word for Char.
Char.
Yeah.
Bouncy.
Love it.
Sunshine.
I thought of sunshine.
Happiness.
Yeah.
Charlie is just like always that little ray of sunshine, just always up. She's
Wow.
the best. And little Ava.
I think of nicknames we call her, but that's not the right one. I don't know, like
particular.
snug, like yeah.
Ava's like, when she wants you, and when she doesn't, she'll let you know.
Absolutely.
She's particular.
Knows what she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sometimes she wants to snuggle. Sometimes she's like,
Sometimes
just
you
leave
do
me
not
alone. I want to be in
touch
the room,
me.
but don't touch me.
Exactly. But it's the best. Yeah.
So going down even further into your like marriage journey. So you have Jack, and then I'm going to guess, because Jack and Charlie are 2 years apart. So you got pregnant about a year after Jack?
Yeah.
Good math, babe.
Thanks.
Good job.
2 minus 9 months. So walk us through Charlie's pregnancy and Charlie's birth, and how you guys came across Charlie's kind of like medical complexity.
Yeah. So totally normal pregnancy, nothing in utero that pointed to any health problems at all. Had a, smooth delivery by all accounts. And it wasn't until she was about 4 months old that we started, things started happening that pointed to like, okay, maybe there's something wrong here. She had started losing weight. And leading up to that point, she was really, really fussy. Like that was one thing. She was super, super fussy. And we had like Chase's parents, I remember at one point had kind of taken us aside and been like, I don't know if this is like this level of fussy seems normal. But again, we only had one kid. Jack, to be honest, was a little bit of a colicky kid too. And so we didn't necessarily know early on that there was something wrong. But we went in for her 4 month, routine checkup appointment with her pediatrician, and she had lost some weight. So that was kind of the catalyst for looking into all these things. And then she started having what are called infantile spasms, which are seizures that happen in infants. And even they can be hard to detect because they don't look like when you think of a seizure, they don't look like a typical how you would think of a seizure with like convulsions and things. It's this really kind of subtle, sudden movement. It almost looks like a startle reflex in babies. But at that point, we had her in speech therapy for the weight issue, and the speech therapist was the one who, I described what I was seeing, and she mentioned like, I don't want to scare you, but just so you know, what you're describing, it sounds a little bit like what are called infantile spasms. Just keep an eye on it. Anyway, long story long, we started Googling and researching, got really freaked out, went to the ER, started running a bunch of tests, and sure enough, she was having these infantile spasms. Infantile spasms tend to be like a symptom or a presentation for something bigger. It's not necessarily a diagnosis in and of itself. And so that's when they connected us with the neurologist, and what ensued was like months and months of tests to try to rule out what might be causing these seizures. And Charlie was almost a year old before we actually got the diagnosis through this, what's called a whole exome genetic sequencing test. It's this really robust test where they deep dive into the genome and they take DNA from mom and dad and from baby and kind of go into the genome and, test different areas. And that's how we became aware that Chase and I are both carriers of this really random, rare genetic mutation. And it's recessive. So he and I both only have one copy of this mutation, but Charlie happened to inherit both of our mutated copies of this gene, which resulted in her having this disease. It's called CDG, stands for congenital disorder of glycosylation. Nice little mouthful. But yeah, that's kind of how that all went down.
And then, if you don't mind, I know this is like a mouthful to go through, but could you explain what CDG actually does for Charlie?
Yeah, so CDG, it's I think the
metabolic
easiest
disease.
Yeah, it's a metabolic disorder, and the easiest way to describe it, I think, is it's a dysfunction in the process of what's called glycosylation, which is like how proteins and sugars attach each other in the body. I'm sure I'm botching this because I'm not a medical professional, but it's like a really basic function in the body. And because there's a dysfunction for her and how her body's doing that, it affects every part of her
cellular
body.
level. Like it affects all the cells in her body.
Yeah. So it's a multi-organ, it has effects on, basically every system of her body. So for her, it's presented in global developmental delays. She's non-ambulatory, means she doesn't walk. She's nonverbal, so she's not talking. She has really low tone, which means she's just kind of floppy, which doesn't have good muscle tone. Cognitively, she's 6, but they'd probably put her, I don't know. We had a physical therapist over recently who said, I'd say between maybe 5 and 8 months cognitively. I mean, it's hard to assess that, but somewhere around there. So it affects motor skills, it affects eating. Our girls are 100% G-tube fed, so they don't eat anything by mouth. So yeah, kind of everything.
How many people in the world have CDG?
So CDG has a whole bunch of different types. There's over 150 different types of CDG. Our girls type, there's like less than 20 in the entire world ever who have been diagnosed with it.
Ever,
yeah.
And so Charlie has this specific diagnosis, but then you have Ava several years later who also has this type of CDG.
Same thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Because again, since it's genetic, exact same thing happened. And like I said, Ava was a surprise. Like once we found out that we carried this genetic mutation, we knew that, okay, having babies, the normal way is off the table now. But then along came Ava very unexpectedly, and she happened to have it as well, it's one of those like, all right, Jesus, take the wheel moments. Like this was meant to be. There's no other explanation for it.
So probably hard question, but with Jack not having CDG and then having Charlie and then having Ava, your love for your child doesn't change. That's a given. That's just something God puts in your heart, which is the most beautiful thing in the world. But
For sure.
when it comes to finding answers for Charlie and Ava for their diagnoses,
Sounds right.
that's one of those, I don't know. And just kind of their way of life and how you operate as a family now and all of their, like the needs that they have versus Jack. Did that complexity within your marriage and within your parenting ever challenge you guys to kind of figure out how to balance both? Because I can only imagine with Charlie and Ava, their needs are probably more consuming than Jack. Mm-hmm. So that difference and balance within your family, does it ever pull tension with you guys?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, and I think the answer is yes. I think that there definitely is a different type of tension. I mean, I think just having more than one kid,
Mm-hmm.
I think of the analogy of like having a kid is like a slice of pie, and you love pie, but then you just add another slice, and it's just more pie, And so, I think with our girls, yes, there's a lot of attention that they need from a care perspective, but then at the same time, we don't have to like worry about having like locks on our drawers or them getting into something, So there are other things that we don't have to worry about that other parents are having to worry about with small toddlers or children.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's just different. Like the concerns with Jack and Charlie and Ava are just really different. Obviously, most of the concerns with Charlie and Ava, they're primarily medical, right? Which can be really, really intense and really consuming. But when medically things are stable for them, in a lot of ways, they're really easy. I mean, I'll have moments where I'm like, sitting there with the girls, and I'm like, you guys are never gonna lie to me, or I'm like, you're always gonna be nice to me, like, and it's kind of nice in that regard because it's true. It's like it's so different, and the dynamic is really different. Whereas with Jack, I know for me, again, just speaking really candidly, I totally feel this. He's the one who's gonna have to like function in the world, and I sometimes feel like way more pressure with him to make sure that we're parenting him in the best possible way because he's the one who's going to be out there, having to survive, so to speak. And I think the added layer of, to your point of making sure that he always feels seen and doesn't have memories of, being eclipsed by his medically complex sisters. That's always been really, really important to us. But it's not like they, hand you a handbook when you have special needs kids and say, here's how to, make this work with your typically developing kid. And here's how you parent in this situation. Like nobody tells you how to do that. And so for me, there's some stress in like navigating that and trying to figure that out. And I think that comes with parenting in general, because there's no parenting handbook, period. Right.
Sure.
But yeah.
The sponsor of today's show is AG1. It's a brand we use every single day.
And even though we're almost out of the cold and flu season, I still feel like there's so many germs going around from the kids being at school, family gatherings, birthday parties, all of it.
Honestly, it's the phase of life we're in. I feel like for the next 5 years,
The
we're just
toddler
buckled
phase.
up. We gotta buckle down on our multivitamins here. But that's why AG1 is a part of our morning routine and has been for several years.
Yes. Okay. The way that I do it every single morning is I mix it with 4 ounces of water, not 8. Stir it up really good, add a ton of ice, and drink it with a straw. It is so good. It's a great way to start my day off with all the vitamins and nutrients that I need. I love it.
I love how much joy your new concoction brings you. It's great. But
I just know I'm feeling good.
with AG1, we can make sure we get our vitamins at least once a day, if not more than once a day. Sometimes we're feeling good, have it in the morning, have it in the evening. But the best part is with just one scoop of AG1, you get 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens for the day.
It's one small habit you can add to your routine every day that makes a huge difference in your overall health. If you think about it, it costs less than $3 a day, which is cheaper than buying all the individual supplements yourself. And I've always told people AG1 is like buying 9 or 10 different supplements and putting it all in one.
It's simpler, it's cheaper, it's better all around. And right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day, and that's it. There's no need for a million different pills. It's nice to have the peace of mind that you're protecting your immune system when you're doing this.
To make it easy, AG1 is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/EastFam.
Again, that's athleticgreens.com/EastFam to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. We'll also link it down below. Let's get back to it.
Let me just say, this is what I love so much about what you guys do, and you've been generous with the content that you've created and shared in your experience. And I think that the more you guys share, just with your communication style and with how thought out you are and with your experiences, I think the better the world is because of other people going through maybe not the exact same thing, but similar situations. So it's pretty cool to see that. I'm sure it's so difficult to share some of the things that you go through, but to think of the good that it does is amazing. So,
well, it makes a lot of people. I remember back to our last interview, R.I.P. When you were saying when you guys got Charlie's diagnosis, you felt less isolated in the world because you knew exactly what to Google or who else to reach out to, or those 19 other families. You felt like you had a community. What you guys are giving to the world as far as like a community is I mean, priceless. It's giving people an outlet to connect to. I want to go back to something you said about postpartum, if you don't mind. So with Charlie's diagnosis, you were 4 months postpartum. With Ava, when did you get her diagnosis?
So Ava was in utero. I was 13 weeks pregnant when we found out with Ava.
So
that she had CDG.
Kind of a double part because it's 2 different girls. Postpartum, no matter the child, is difficult. I remember with Andrew, similar to what you were saying, I really struggled vocalizing to him how I almost didn't feel like a human because I felt like I was being just pulled in this direction of mom. I no longer felt like wife because you're just hormonal and there's a lot. There was no room for that. And I felt like I lost my identity for a while. And that same thing you said of it took a while to feel like me. So now with Charlie's diagnosis, with postpartum, you throw in medical complexities. I'm curious how that affected postpartum for you. Just kind of processing life as being different. And then with Ava, you had to deal with that even earlier. So you had more medical complexities that you knew were coming. Did that affect you as mom? Because our hearts are already torn a million ways as mama.
So with Ava, I'm just going to be so honest, with you guys. When we found out with Ava that she also had CDG, I'm not going to lie, I was like beside myself. I was so devastated. And in some ways, I was really grateful that we were able to get her diagnosis early on in my pregnancy because it gave me the rest of my pregnancy to like get to a place emotionally where I was okay with that. I will say this shouldn't have come as a surprise, but it kind of did somehow. Once we had Ava and she was like in my arms, it was so much easier because now it was like, that feeling when just how you feel about your babies. And like you said, Shawn, it is this gift from God. It's like, you don't have to try to love them. It's just there. And so once she was here, it was like, oh my gosh, it made it so much easier because now we were connecting with her and feeling all that love. And it felt like, okay, this is going to be great. It's going to be okay. Not to say that we didn't still have those moments of, or things to process. But it became easier once she was here, I would say.
Chase, take me back to that moment when, as Shannon said, she was at this point of devastation. What would you say to yourselves in that moment, or like to another couple who is at that point where they have, again, it's hard to almost talk about because, as you say, you wouldn't change it, and it's like,
right,
it's amazing, right? And
right.
But I guess the closest way I can put it is there's 1,000 new things that you're walking into as a parent of any new child, and medical complexity is like another thing layered on top of that. But what would you say to someone in that position now, Chase?
So there's this line that that I said to Shannon a couple of times, that that life is going to be even better than we expect, for ourselves. And so I think that I think for us it was just like you don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, but you just know that it's going to be even better than you could have designed for yourself. And it's hard to grasp that in the moment, but I think we'd gone through some other things as well. Like my dad passed away 2 weeks before we got Charlie's diagnosis, like totally unexpectedly. And then I had a health scare, that same year. And so it kind of felt like, when's the other shoe going to drop? And so I think there was just I felt like a lifetime of experiences that kind of happened in a very short period of time. And so it forced us to mature really quickly and to just recognize that, like, hey, what's in our control and what's not. And let's just make the best with everything that we've been given.
And Chase he said that to me a lot through that period, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be better than okay. And something about that was just, it totally was what I needed to hear. But also, like, to your point, Andrew, that's why I like to be really open and honest about the full range of emotions that we've gone through this whole thing. Because I think that's what I hope, when people find our account and hear our story, that I hope it'll make people feel less alone and feel like it is going to be okay. Because we know firsthand, and me especially, that feeling when you're finding out that your child's going to have health problems, or that things are just going to be different than what you had pictured, and all the emotions that come with that. And to be able to see an example of a family that had been there and is now in a place where they wouldn't change things and they're living a full life and they are at peace. I mean, that's what we want, is for people to know that it is going to be okay and that they're not alone.
Wow.
How do you prioritize you guys now? How do you keep your marriage at the forefront of kiddos? Because it's hard.
Yeah. Well, and at the forefront of kiddos, career, there's so much competing for our time, right?
I think
They're like,
are we doing that?
No, I think it's date night, I think is an important thing that we do. And then I think for work right now I'm traveling, and so what's awesome is that Shannon's been able to kind of travel with me, and so that'll give us some time
that's awesome
to kind of just spend with each other. But
which is a blessing, because, and I want to acknowledge the fact that we have a really great support system, and we have that ability to leave together and leave the kids with people that we really trust. I know that not everyone is in that situation, especially with special needs kids. And I like to be acknowledge that, because that can be a really hard scenario to navigate as well. I'll have families reach out and say, Yeah, I'd love to go out with my husband, but who's going to watch my medically complex kid that I really don't trust with anyone, you know? Um,
So yeah, and I love that point because it makes me think of like other like really small things that,
right.
for example, like working out and just scheduling our workouts like so we both are able to get the workout. So it's like, hey, you might be taking, putting the kids to bed tonight so I can work out, or I'm gonna get up earlier, or like she would take a girls' trip, or I would take a guys, like a guys' trip with my brothers or with friends. And so I think we still try to schedule in those things and get some time for yourself and then for us, so that we felt like it was more manageable.
Well, and to your point about things that feel simple, like one thing that I feel like Chase and I have always, that has come naturally in our marriage is we just talk to each other a lot. He's like my favorite person to talk to. I hope I could he would say the same about
Of
me.
course.
And so he's like the first person that I want to, tell things to. We usually spend time every day. And again, it just happens pretty organically, like talking about our day and telling each other what's been going on. Um, and I think that has been really, really important because it's kept our connection strong, even in the periods where like it's hard to go on a date night every night. Like, frankly, during COVID, we used to actually be really good about a date night. And then COVID happened and that went away, right? And I don't know that we've necessarily like gotten back in that routine. We kind of haven't. Um, and so I think like finding those simple things that allow you to connect even when life feels super crazy and you can't necessarily do the bigger stuff like going on a date every night or whatever, or every week. I think that's really important.
You had said every night for like a couple times, and
She
I was
said
like,
every night.
wow.
So I wish we went on.
I meant every
night.
I wish we went on
Yeah.
a date every night. It was once. No, it was once a week. And probably once a week or once every other week. I think was what like kind of pre-COVID, and then COVID happened, and yeah, and then it was like, oh, when's the last time
Yeah.
we went on a date? It's like, oh, it's been a long time.
So
So
you talked about the strategy with making your marriage a focus, and Shannon, you alluded to Jack not being eclipsed by the medical complexities. What are your strategies or what's your approach there?
Yeah. So we decided a while ago, actually, that we were going to do, we call them Jack nights. So at least once a month, we do a Jack night where it's just us and him. So far, it's been both me and Chase and him. I think sometime we'll try, just like him and Chase, me and him. But we go out with just him. We do something that feels special. Like one time we went and stayed, we did a little staycation and stayed in a hotel, went to dinner, stayed up late watching movies with them and slept in a hotel, just like, I don't know, 5 minutes up the
I'm
road
about to
from
cry,
our
man.
house.
That's
But
awesome.
it just, but it was fun. And I think it did make him feel really, just like all the attention was on him. One of our most recent IVF cycles, we surprised him in last minute before we were going to go. We had him come with us. So he flew back to California with us. We stayed in the hotel that time as well. And it was just us and him. And we just got to hang out. And that was so fun. We've done simpler things. We've done drive-in movies. We've done,
went skiing,
yeah, Chase and him went skiing. So just things like that, but the individual time and where it feels, we talk about it intentionally and say like, it's Jack night. We want to spend time with just you, buddy. Let's go.
I
do
love
it.
that. I've actually had that thought
Yeah.
even just with kids in general. Like now that we have
Yeah,
two,
for sure.
I feel like it's very easy to generalize your kids as like, oh, kids, like you just handle them
Right.
as like the bulk. But I've even had that thought with both of ours of saying like once a month, once a week, it's going to be Drew's night. Drew can go with Andrew or whatever, but really trying to have that
Right.
specialized time for each kid to know that like we see them individually
Yes.
and not just as the bulk. So
Absolutely.
So you alluded to
Yes.
IVF. Are you in your 5th round now of IVF or 5th attempt?
So we We just completed our
Oh
sixth
man.
cycle.
Wow.
Number 6. Yeah, I think our rest in peace episode, we were in the middle of
Yeah.
cycle 5 and we snuck one in between.
And how is
So,
that going for you guys?
so we actually finally got some really good news that we'll share with you guys. So cycle 5 failed, meaning we got 0 healthy embryos, and we were super bummed about it because we'd had all of our highest numbers, like highest egg count, highest fertilized, like it seemed like it was going to go really well, and then at the end we got nothing, and we were super bummed about it. We decided to do one more round. Cycle 6, all of our numbers were like some of the lowest they've ever been. Like lowest egg count, lowest, yeah, everything. Um, but we actually ended up getting 2 more healthy
Aw,
embryos from
Let's
that cycle.
go.
I
that's
know.
awesome.
Yay!
If you don't mind me asking, just because
Yeah.
I would love to understand the IVF process
Yeah.
more. A friend of ours used the same verbiage and I never asked, but as far as like healthy embryos go, what are they testing for? Like literally everything?
Yeah, so they're testing for a slew of things that you generally test for, like you know how you do
Yeah.
all the genetic testing just in a normal pregnancy. They do all of that, but then in our case, because we know exactly what our genetic mutation is, they created, it's called like a primer. It's a test where they can go in and identify that specific gene and make sure that the embryo doesn't carry the gene mutation that we
Interesting.
have, which would not have been possible if we didn't actually have our diagnosis. You know, so to your earlier point about so many things become available once you actually have your diagnosis, that's one of them. Like there wouldn't have really been a big point in doing IVF for us
Yeah.
if we didn't have our
So then, if
diagnosis.
you don't mind me asking, within each round of IVF,
Yeah.
were multiple embryos coming back with that same genetic mutation?
Yeah, so either that, it was either they would have CDG or they would have something else like chromosomal abnormalities. Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, nothing has made me appreciate what an absolute miracle it is that people have
Yeah.
healthy
Jeez,
children
dude.
just naturally than doing IVF because suddenly it's like opening the hood of a car and you see how the whole thing works and you realize like how much has to go right in order for a healthy child to come out the other end, so to speak. It's crazy. I mean, that is nothing short of a miracle.
So
yeah.
then now you guys have how many healthy embryos going into the next step is
Fertilization? I don't know, actually. Okay.
transfer,
Transfer. It's called
fertilization.
transfer.
I'm just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have
That's
4.
awesome. Wow.
So we have 4 now.
Dang.
So are you guys at a
We're
stage
super
where you're
pumped
thinking about like it's time for transfer? Or are you just wanting the opportunity and option for when the day comes?
No, so we totally have a plan. We're gonna take a little break and just for me, I feel like I just need a little break to feel normal again physically for my body to just kind of recover because you know we did IVF pretty much like back to back to back cycles for like over a year, which just takes a toll on your body. So I think we'll take a little break and then transfer
That's
later
awesome.
this year. Is kind
Hold
of
on.
the plan.
So
Yeah, and you know, fingers crossed that it goes
I'm so excited
smoothly.
for you guys. Thank you for sharing
Thank
the happy
you.
news. With your situation, since there wasn't necessarily like a, I don't even know what you call it. That I know people who do IVF because they don't have the, infertility. So did you have to do the shots and the whole thing, or is that like, okay? Wow.
Everything. It's the
Dang.
same process. Yeah. So that was another really interesting, I don't know, just layer of emotional processing for me is like once we found out Charlie's diagnosis and realizing like, oh my gosh, we can't just get pregnant naturally and knowing that like what a blessing it is because there are so many women who struggle with or couples who struggle with infertility. Um, yeah,
I think we were a little bit naive going into IVF, thinking
oh my
like
gosh, so
round
naive.
one, we're like,
Just so
round one,
naive.
it's gonna work. We're gonna be good.
Well,
And
because our
then,
thought was like, we've never had trouble getting pregnant. Like, this
yeah,
should be, slam dunk. Like, we'll just get in, get out. We'll be good to we'll be good to go. Oh man, nothing has been further from the truth. So that threw us for a loop for sure.
Shawn and I talk all the time, like, you know, before we had Drew, before we had Jet, talking through a potential third. It's such a daunting thing, especially like when we had Drew and we had some complexities there. She was like a 2-vessel baby, and then like had some potential
she had kidney issues in utero. She had growth issues in utero. She just she was one of those that had like a lot of red flags. So we didn't do genetic testing, and it was one of those where we didn't know what delivery day was going to bring.
How it
and
would turn out.
the realization that you're not in control, even with your experience with IVF, like it's such a humbling experience. And it's terrifying on the one hand, but I think it's almost that uncertainty that leads to this, the fullness of it and what it is, where it's like this hold on loosely concept with parenting. And even now Drew's 2.5 and she's like, functional ish, where it's like still you want to hold on tightly through the whole thing, through pregnancy, through like our experience parenting so far, where like, I just want to control it, but like, that's not what it's about. It's almost like this process of learning that it's not about that. But anyway, that's my thought for the day.
No, it's so true. No, it's so true. I mean, it just forces you to walk in faith, not sight, right? Because exactly to your point, it's like you just realize how little you do actually have control over. And it's just like, all right, like, Jesus, take the wheel.
Dang.
I mean, I got to give it to you because I literally have no choice. Like that's where we're at.
Last time we talked to you guys, you had talked about Ava, how she had a setback. I was just curious how she's doing.
Oh, thanks for asking. She's doing better.
yeah.
Yeah. Ava's setback was hard. So originally Ava seemed like developmentally she was going to be the less impacted of our two girls from the disease. And then she started having seizures, which just later. Charlie had seizures really early on. Ava didn't start having them till around like 7 or 8 months. And then she had an asymptomatic UTI, urinary tract infection. Showed no symptoms until it was like severe. And she just had a really, really horrible reaction to that. And it kind of changed everything. It changed her baseline. It just really set her back. And
it was like a reset to like basically to almost, not even like a newborn. It was like
it just suddenly seemed like everything was different, which is way more severe. But it's been really encouraging to see her. I mean, her health still is, I would say, more precarious than Charlie's. It's not as stable. But she has progressed. Her health has improved. And I will say it makes those moments when she's doing really well that much sweeter. I mean, it really does. Because anytime Ava's laughing or engaging, or she's in a place where she's making good eye contact, she's
giggling,
sociable,
laughing.
We're just like over the moon about it, because it doesn't happen quite as frequently as it had.
You have to earn it with her.
A little bit, yeah. But she's in a good place right now, and it's like anytime we're in that phase, we're just like, thank you, and make it last, Just
Chase, can I ask, because you work like a big boy job, like a legitimate, he's like a professional, big timer.
Oh my gosh.
Any given day, there could be one of a million things happening that was unpredictable, unforeseen, and you're showing up to work every day. How do you approach that? Like, how do you deal with that?
I work from home, so that's a nice, and they're pretty flexible about stuff, but yeah, I think I've always made it clear with the companies I've worked at, that when there are things that come up with their medical complexities, that like I make myself available for that my family comes first. So there's been times when Charlie's G-tube popped out, and I was like, hey, I gotta go. And yeah, so I think I've just made it a priority that, whatever is going on with work can wait, with some of those things. But then at the same time, it's like, well, then later at night, I might need to make up some things I need to do, or get some things to people. But yeah, I mean, I'm lucky to have that flexibility right now. I think with the situation that COVID's created with kind of flexible work, it's a lot easier now than it was previously. But yeah.
Chase does a really good job of balancing all of that. I have to give him props for that.
Dang.
I do have to say, we talked about this after our first interview that we keep alluding to. Your guys' like outlook and how you guys present yourself, and it seems genuine. I'm not accusing you of not being genuine. I just mean it seems real. Is you guys? Yeah. You guys just seem like such a good team, and I feel like there are so many people in the world that paint a picture, a doomsday picture, when presented with something that they didn't see coming. And you guys, I feel like, make everything seem manageable. I don't know how to say that. It's almost like a bring it on mentality. And I love it. It's I don't want to say inspiring. It's just, it puts things into perspective that, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Shawn. I appreciate that. I mean, and Chase and I, we always want to make it really clear, like, it's not all like sunshine and roses over here where, I never want to, like, we try to keep it real, and be really transparent about all sides of life, because we never want to make it seem like everything's great all the time and nothing's ever hard by any means. But we do, to your point about like the perspective can sometimes be doomsday when things go really differently than you hoped. That I think that's what we hope that our story and what we've had to go through can, like, the way that it can add value is for people to know that it doesn't have to be that, that things can go really differently than you had planned and still be just as beautiful, just as full, just as amazing as what you had hoped, as your previous hopes. Different, yes, but not any less than what you had hoped, even with these huge changes like medically complex kids.
And you're going to feel the gamut of emotions.
Yeah.
Like in any given day, like it might start off really great, and then, maybe this is too personal, but Ava's been struggling with like constipation and just kind of GI stuff. And so the other day we had to give her like a enema and stuff, and give her a whole bunch of Miralax, like just to like get everything moving. And it's gross, like it's like, so I mean there's just things that, like, when you have like a 6-year-old blowout versus like a little baby blowout, it's a little different,
Yeah.
So
now we're getting real.
but yeah, I mean, those things happen, and I think that's okay. It's just a different experience, but there's great moments, there's hard moments. It's just a different kind of hard, but then also different moments of joy, and kind of seeing those moments where where Ava's smiling and we're really excited about that, and not necessarily thinking like, oh, she has missed, a lot of milestones, or she's trying to catch up. It's like she's kind of on her own journey. And so I think that and again, I don't feel like we always have how do I say this? So we have to remind ourselves of these things as well. Like, I don't think that in any given day when we go through those gamut of emotions, we're like, okay, at the end of the day, like that was fantastic. Like at the end of the day, we're like, that day kind of sucked, or like that was a really hard day. But we gave it our best, and we just hope that tomorrow, is a better day maybe.
We've had to really embrace, like, I call it like and emotions, like that it's not one or the other. Usually like the way we feel about things isn't just one or the other. So, and we've learned a lot about that in our experience, and learning to be okay with, feeling multiple things about any given scenario at the same time, like, and that it's okay for me to say, I feel like the most blessed mom in the world to have these two perfect little girls as my children. And I also have, sporadic moments where aspects of their diagnosis will make me feel a little sad or will feel really hard. And I'll have to like give myself, hold space for myself to mourn the loss of the life I thought we were going to have with them, and to hold space for myself to do that and give myself grace and know that like, it's okay to have those moments where I feel sad about that. My role for myself is I just never let myself stay there, but yeah, I mean, and emotions, like I think we need to normalize that you can feel multiple things about something simultaneously, and it's okay.
Is the story of you linking up with another family who has the same diagnosis because of social media, that's real, that's true? You stay in contact with them?
That is real. That's true. Yeah.
Wow.
Social media. Yeah, man. I mean,
and we met up with them as well. We like
we
took
got to
pictures and we hung out with them. And
yeah, like meet them, so they have I hope it's okay that I'm sharing this. I think she'll be okay with it. But they have a child with the same type of CDG as our kids. It's their son. His name is Charlie.
Wow.
So
funny.
It's just so crazy. And we found each other, through social media. We had been back, they lived back east, and we were back there for a medical visit. And so we got to go to lunch with them. Wow. Our Charlies got to meet. Yeah. I mean, it's been
Do you know
amazing.
how many people carry the recessive trait? Do you know? Is there a stat on that?
Oh my gosh. No, because that's what's so weird about it, is that you wouldn't really know. Mm. Like our geneticist has said, any person that you see walking around on average probably has between like 5 and 8 genetic mutations, but just really random, crazy ones that, kind of like ours. And the only reason we ended up knowing about ours, obviously, is because we happened to marry each other and we happen to have the same mutation. Mm. But had we not, we wouldn't know that we have that,
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't know to test for it.
Yeah. Because most of those mutations, unless you procreate with someone who has the same one, which is, the odds of that are so unlikely, although here we are.
1 in a million, 1 in a billion.
Yeah.
They're benign. Like it doesn't really, it's kind of irrelevant. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, the whole world of genetics is crazy.
I'm such a fan of you guys, honestly. Like Shawn was saying, your perspective is amazing, and I appreciate it so much. I look back on the words that you described Chase with, which is like peace. You still feel that. I don't think that's probably changed through everything that you guys have been through, and it's cool to think that you describe Charlie as like sunny. That's just like, man, you guys embody that. Yes, it's complex, but looking towards the better side of like, Charlie's sunny, and I find peace with Chase, even though I'm sure it's wild over there.
And Ava's particular.
Yeah. It's just cool. And I have a goal to get Chase on American Ninja Warrior. So
do you have video of yours? I'd love to see yours.
I'll text it to you, bro. I'll text it to you. I can't.
I support that goal. We love that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for the time.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna delete this so that we can get another hour with you guys.
Yeah. Come out to Nashville and hang with y'all.
Yes, please. We would love that. We would love
that.
Get
away anyway. But no, we're huge fans of yours too, and we just admire all that you guys do. It blows our minds. Chase and I have talked about that multiple times. We're like, we need to step it up, man. Look, I mean, they're doing it all. It's incredible.
Well, for those listening who want to find out more about Shannon, Chase not so much on social media, but Shannon particularly, we'll link her stuff down below. Highly recommend giving it a look. She does an amazing job. So thank you guys for the time, and it's good to see your faces.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.
Yeah.